Okay, so we're going to look at the rest of chapter 55. So to start off, we're going to look at primary production, which is the amount of light energy that is converted into chemical energy. Total primary production in an ecosystem is known as the ecosystem's gross primary production, or GPP. This is the amount of energy from light, or chemicals in chemioautotrophic systems, that is converted to chemical energy of organic molecules per unit time. Not all of this production is stored as organic material in the primary producers because they use some of the molecules as fuel in their own cellular respiration. Net primary production is equal to the gross primary production minus the energy that is used by the primary producers for their autotrophic respiration. On average, MPP is about 1/2 of the GPP. To ecologists, MPP is a key measurement because it represents the storage of chemical energy that will be available to consumers in an ecosystem. So here we just have a picture of the net primary production of different ecosystems, and as you can see, which we'll talk about in a moment, the marine or ecosystems, or even the water systems in general, tend to be a little bit larger than the terrestrial ones. They're split up over along this side, and then you can look at the percent of the Earth's surface area, the average NPP, and the percentage of the net primary production over here. So primary production is influenced by light availability. Obviously, when you increase in depth, you decrease in photosynthesis, and nutrient availability, nitrogen and phosphorus in the marine environment. At regional and global scales, temperature and moisture are the main factors controlling primary production in terrestrial ecosystems. Tropical rainforests, with their warm, wet conditions that promote plant growth, are among the most productive of all terrestrial ecosystems. The climate variables of moisture and temperature are very useful in predicting NPP in terrestrial ecosystems. Primary production is greater in wetter ecosystems, along with the mean annual precipitation. A second useful predictor is called actual evapotranspiration, which is the total amount of water transpired by plants and evaporated from the landscape. Evapotranspiration increases with the temperature and the amount of solar energy available to drive evaporation and transpiration. So we're going to look at energy transfers between trophic levels, and it's typically 10%. We're going to talk about this little guy over here, this little caterpillar munching on a leaf. When a caterpillar munches on a leaf, only about 1/6 of the potential energy in the leaf is used for secondary production. The caterpillar then stores some of the remaining energy in organic compounds that will be used for cellular respiration, and basically passes the rest of it through its feces. Most of the energy in the feces is eventually lost as heat after the feces is consumed by detrivores. The energy used for the caterpillar's respiration is also lost from the ecosystem as heat as well. This is why energy is said to flow and not cycle within an ecosystem. Only the chemical energy stored by herbivores as biomass is available as food to secondary consumers. Net secondary production is the energy stored in biomass represented by growth and reproduction. Assimilation consists of the total energy taken in and used for growth, reproduction, and respiration. Keep in mind this does not include the losses in feces. Production efficiency, therefore, is the percentage of energy stored in assimilated foods that is not used for respiration. You can see the little equation down here, just taking the net secondary production times 100, divide by the assimilation, you're going to get the production efficiency. So the loss of energy within each transfer in the food chain can be represented by a pyramid of net production, like the one you see in front of you. And each of the trophic levels are arranged in tiers. The width of the tier is important to the net production expressed in joules of each trophic level. The highest level, which represents top-level predators, contains only a few individuals. The small population size is typical of top predator species, is one of the reasons they tend to be vulnerable to extinction. We also have ecological pyramids that give insight to food chain. One important ecological consequence of low trophic efficiencies is represented in a biomass pyramid, which is this one down here. Again, I apologize, it's cut off. Okay, so in which each tier represents the standing crop, or the total dry mass of all, over here, the dry mass of all organisms on a trophic level. Most biomass pyramids narrow sharply from the primary. As you can see, that happens here with the Florida bog. They're going to narrow sharply from primary producers at the base to the top level carnivores at the top, because energy transfer between trophic levels are so insufficient. Scientists have found many ways to use prokaryotes to benefit industry and the environment. One important use of prokaryotes is bioremediation, a process that uses microbes and other living things to break down pollutants. For example, some types of bacteria can digest oil, which is helpful in cleaning up oil spills like the ones we had down in the Gulf Coast, along with other industrial accidents. Workers often spray oil-polluted beaches with a fertilizer that helps the bacteria grow. Bacteria can digest almost any product that humans can make, including poisons. Therefore, they play an important role in recycling and composting. When you hear the term biodegradable, it often refers to the ability of bacteria to break down a material. Some of the only materials made by humans that cannot be biodegraded are certain types of plastics. Bioaugmentation is the addition of necessary nutrients required to speed up the rate of degradation of a contaminant. So when you introduce desirable species to add essential nutrients into the area. So in the upper right picture, we have waste containing uranium were dumped in these 4 unlit pits for more than 30 years, which obviously led to contaminating the soils and groundwater around them. The Kissimmee River once meandered for 103 miles through central Florida. Its floodplain, reaching up to 3 miles wide, was inundated for long periods by heavy seasonal rains. Wetland plants, wading birds, and fish thrived there. However, there was prolonged flooding from the hurricanes in the 1940s that had severe impacts on the people living in the area, where waterfowl numbers fell 90%, bald eagles nesting declined by 75%, and wading birds also declined along the river and floodplains. The government then stepped in and decided that they would help restore the Kissimmee River, which is exactly what happened. Congress authorized a couple of bills. They passed, they sent money, and now, as you can see here, it's thriving.